Big LEZ'S League, an all rugby league experience. Hello, welcome back to Big LEZ'S League, an all rugby league experience. I'm your host, Big Les. We're going to be going through all of the news and updates going around the league over the past 48 to 72 hours. Look, it's been a big week of news. Obviously, not too many big announcements. I know there will be one going into the next few days, which we'll sort of touch on straight away, but certainly a big week for news with a lot of little minor updates and things happening around the league that are definitely worth discussing. We're getting our news off Clarkie's Rugby League column, so make sure you go ahead and give him a follow for a bunch of news updates. He's the GOAT of this sport. He's the GOAT of rugby league content, so make sure you go ahead and give him a follow. But that's where we're getting our news from. We're going to start off with Leo Thompson. It's reported the Raiders are currently the favourites to sign Leo Thompson from 2026 onwards. However, the Roosters are looming in the background as the dark horses. It sounds like he's informed his teammates that he's going to the Raiders, so it doesn't look like the Roosters thing's happening now. I obviously had a little bit of a big call a few weeks ago when we were talking about Leo Thompson and where he could land, that he would probably go to the Sydney Roosters. It would make sense, obviously replacing a guy like Jared Warrior-Hargraves, but it looks like Leo Thompson is going to the Raiders. I think it's great for the Canberra Raiders as well. You look at how hard it is to get blokes over to the Canberra Raiders, the environment there, the weather, it's just not as attractive as a location, as a lot of other clubs at the moment. So for them to go ahead and land Leo Thompson, I think it's a great signing. I think that he's going to be so appreciated there. Entering a pack of, Josh Papali'i, Joseph Tarpanay, adding Leo Thompson into that. You'd think Josh Papali'i, it's probably his last year this year, to be honest, or it may be next year. So maybe a potential replacement for Josh Papali'i coming in at the right time. Back to the club where he started as well, Leo Thompson. I think it's a great signing for Canberra. It's great that they can get a star in that building. Be interesting to see how much they paid for a Leo Thompson as well, but it's a great signing for them. It's going to be so good for that forward pack, and having him and Tarpanay going at it through the middle, that New Zealand combination, that is going to be insane to watch as well. Super pumped for this signing for the Canberra Raiders. As for the Sydney Roosters, didn't think they were going to miss out on a guy like Leo Thompson, especially when they've got so much money to splash and, the location of Sydney compared to Canberra. I think that just makes this signing for Canberra even more impressive. So congratulations to the Canberra Raiders. As for the Sydney Roosters, a pretty big loss, especially with a club with so much coin to splash. But don't think the Roosters are done in the market yet. I think 2026, 2027, the next few years, they're really going to make a few splashes. Maybe in the forwards, but definitely in the backs. And I think the most obvious one is going to be the guys like Kalen Ponga, Dylan Brown. These sort of guys have been discussed. Selwyn Cobbo, I still think's in the race, potentially to land at the Sydney Roosters, but we'll have to wait and see. The Bulldogs obviously pulled out yesterday too for that Leo Thompson signing. Pretty shocked, to be honest. I think that he'd just be the cherry on top for what is a great rugby league side at the moment. Just adding another big forward into that pack. You're obviously running with quite a mobile side at the moment, but just to add another guy with a bit of size and grunt and power into that pack, I think would have been really the cherry on top into a side that obviously is making a push for a premiership. Let's talk a little bit about Ezra Mam. We won't go into this too much. Radio commentator Mark Levi has slammed Ezra Mam's punishment as disgraceful. He believes the NRL should suspend him for the entire 2025 season. He says it sends a clear message to the rest of the NRL and the rest of the NRL playing fraternity that this will not be tolerated. Other journos have commented on this as well. Michael Karayanis obviously putting out a statement the other day saying the court punishment was a joke, $850. It's weak. He's lucky someone wasn't killed. It's reckless and dangerous. Look, he did make a huge mistake here, and was the punishment a little bit lenient and not what we expected? 100%. But the NRL hasn't given out their punishment yet, so we'll have to wait and see what that looks like. But yeah, look, the last thing that I want to see, yes, Ezra Mam's made a huge mistake. Yes, it was the wrong thing. Yes, the punishment isn't what everyone thought they were going to see. the last thing I want to see is Ezra Mann be the most hated guy in rugby league. I really don't want to see Ezra Mann become that guy. He's made a mistake. He's going to be paying for that over the next 12 months, you'd imagine. With obviously a lot of discussion around what the punishment from the NRL is going to be. I think it is likely we see him miss the 2025 season. Ben Hunt obviously slots into 5'8" with Adam Reynolds at halfback for that season, you'd think. But I don't want to see Ezra Mann be the most hated guy in rugby league. I want him to come back, play some great footy, get the love and respect back from the fans over the next few years as well, and just put this thing behind him. Yes, it's a mistake. Yes, there was a huge chance of the families being hurt, and it's obviously not what you want to see, and the punishment, as I said, wasn't a respected one from the fans, and it's definitely not what I thought I'd expect to see from this type of scenario as well. And you'd look at a lot of other guys and everyday people, and the punishment that would have been incurred on them, and on what's happened here with Ezra Mann. I get it. It's bad. However, I don't want Ezra Mann to be the most hated guy in rugby league. It's the last thing I really want to see for Ezra Mann. Let's move on a little bit. We won't talk about Ezra Mann too much longer. To get back to the positive sort of thing with Daniel Atkinson signing with the Dragons officially. It's a 3-year deal from 2026. I love this for Daniel Atkinson. He's a great player. He's got so much skill. He can run a rugby league side as well. So whether that's at 7 or 6, that's going to be really interesting to see. Obviously can play mainly fullback as well. And, obviously with Gutho being in his mid-30s at the moment, I think 31, 32, Clint Gutherson. Let's just double check that. Go Clint Gutherson, age. Let's have a look. 30 years old. So obviously getting into the peak of his powers there. Gutho, not as old as I actually thought he was, to be honest. But yeah, look, Atkinson might even, slot into the fullback jersey over the next few years as well. Maybe Gutho goes to centre over the next few years. Obviously, it looks like he's playing fullback this season. But Atkinson can obviously slot in there as well. You've also got Ilias and Flanagan at the club, so maybe that's how they manoeuvre this side going into the next few years, and Atkinson lines up at the fullback. But for me, going into 26, I know it's a long way down the road, but he'd be my 6. I'd have him at 5'8". I'd have probably Ilias, depending on how he develops at 7, if not Flanagan. But obviously that's going to be very dependent on how this season goes for both of those guys. Obviously looking to be in the halves together. I don't know how that's going to work. Who's the 6, who's the 7? I think that maybe Ilias gets a little bit more confidence and goes into that 7 jersey. Obviously came through the grade as a 6'2", Lachlan Ilias, so he might even just sit at 6, Flanagan at 7. We'll have to wait and see. But whatever happens with this season is going to be very dependent on who partners Atkinson in the halves, but I think that's certainly where he starts his Dragons tenure, in that 5'8" jersey. He's got a pretty decent kicking game, really good running game. His ball skills are great as well, so I think he can suit that halves jersey, and he played a hybrid 5'8" halfback role against Melbourne and absolutely killed it. So it'll be really interesting to see where Daniel Atkinson lines up. But I wouldn't necessarily rule out fullback, especially because that's where he came through the grade as a fullback. So wouldn't rule that out entirely either there for Daniel Atkinson going into that 2026 season. Trent Merrin, he's officially re-signed with the Melbourne Storm. Long-term extension until the end of 2028. It was said that, he said, having been there since the age of 17 and now extended my contract until 2028 is a special feeling. Love this signing. Obviously, very doubtful, 2 years back that this guy was going to be in the 17. Obviously, Craig Bellamy this season, he really shows some faith and throws him straight into the 13 jersey, a spot that we didn't think he was going to land. And obviously, starting to conform with the more mobile 13, which a lot of other top teams are doing at the moment. Trent Merrin goes to 13. He is outstanding. It's a bit of a slow start. The trials were definitely concerning, but as we moved through the season, he was outstanding. And by the end of the year, it was very heavily said that he was one of the top performers of 2024. And going into 2025, going into the next few years, obviously until 2028, I think he's going to be a mainstay in that Storm jersey, in that 13 jersey. I think that he's going to kill it there for years to come. He's an absolute gun, and I think an Origin debut isn't too far down the track either. Obviously, Billy Slater showed him a lot of faith, having him in the squad, obviously with a lot of other guys like Helam Lukey, Ezra Mam, but I think that Trent Merrin, depending on, injuries and things like that, I don't think an Origin debut is too far down the track. And it might be a big call, but he has definitely got some talent. He's definitely got some great ability in that 13 sort of role. So if they do need a little bit more of a mobile pack, or if they do change direction and depending on injury and things like that for Queensland, don't be surprised to see Trent Merrin's name in that Queensland squad again in 2025 and moving forward. Big report over the past few days is John Bateman. He is officially signed with the Cowboys on a 2-year deal after the Tigers agreed to release him from his contract immediately. He was never going to be at the Tigers going into this season. It was really doubtful that he was going to be a West Tiger for too much longer, with the divide there at the club between himself, Benji Marshall, and the officials. Going to the Cowboys, I really like it. I think that he's going to thrive there too. I think that if they use him correctly, like we said on the podcast the other day, it's going to work out well in a sort of middle role, coming off the bench, just being a bit of a mongrel. That's where I see John Bateman playing. Obviously, you've got guys like Helam Lukey and Jeremiah Nanai that you have to prioritise as the future. John Bateman, 31, 32 years of age, I believe. So definitely would look to prioritise those younger guys in the back row. And I still think that he's in the 17. I think that he'll come off the bench and play through the middle, a bit more of a mobile middle forward. But yeah, look, I'm keen to see how it goes. If they use him correctly and he completely buys in, it's going to be great. If he doesn't, well, it just won't be. And I really hope that he does, for the Cowboys' sake, buy in. Otherwise, he probably won't be playing too much first grade for the Cowboys. But he is in my 17. I think he does come off the bench. But yeah, we'll have to wait and see how he goes in the 2025 season. It's definitely the last place I thought I'd see John Bateman's name pop up as a North Queensland Cowboy. And I'll tell you what, the Englishman is going to suffer in the Queensland heat. But yeah, good signing. If they can use him well, he'll definitely be regarded as one of the better signings of the season too. The Sharkies, they officially re-signed Teague Wilton. Love this for the Sharkies. Really solid player. Got a lot of heart and determination. Definitely a few concerns around his defence, which has obviously been a main talking point for the Cronulla Sharks and Teague Wilton going into the 2024 season. But he sort of fixed it up towards the back end of the year. I'm interested to see where he plays in 2025. I don't know if it's necessarily going to be on an edge. I honestly could see him transition into the middle, depending on how they want to build that side and if they want to start a guy like CSF Talakai. But yeah, look, I'm really keen to see how he goes next year. Gun to head, I think he probably does stay on that left edge, but depending on how they want to use Sifa Talakai, maybe he does go into the middle, Teague Wilton. But great re-signing, good young bloke to keep around the side. And once he fixes up his defence, he's going to be a workhorse. He runs some great lines, a really good runner of the football. So can't wait to see how he goes next season. King Gutho has reportedly spent the entire preseason training at fullback so far, and it appears the Dragons have no interest in using him as a forward as the Eels previously planned. This is an obvious one. Don't need to talk about this one too much. He's going to be the fullback. Shane Flanagan confirmed it weeks ago, with Tyrell Sloan set to sit on the right wing, I believe. He was much more dominant on that right side. Works well. Tuipulotu, he's very good on the left side, so I think that's your wing pairing going into next year, with obviously Val Holmes and Moses Sully in the centres. So that's how I see the Dragons shaping up. And I think that, Sloan, give him a tiny bit of a roaming license, let him and Gutho build a bit of a combination there on that right side. It's going to be real dangerous for the Dragons going into next year. Now, this one shocked me. Obviously, a really talented Bulldogs junior. Outside back, Eli Clark. The Bulldogs have reportedly informed Eli Clark that he's better to explore his options elsewhere, as the outside backs are covered. It's understood several clubs are interested in his signature. look, you look at the Bulldogs, you think about their outside backs going into next year. Certainly the wingers are covered. You've got Blake Wilson, Marcelo Montoya. You've got plenty of choices there for the wings. Jacob Kiraz, obviously there in the outside backs as well. Bronson Sherry, Stephen Crichton are your centres. Just trying to get up a little bit more of the depth here in front of me just so I have it to read off. So they've got Taff, Wilson, Sherry, Connor Tracy, Drew Atkinson, who's more of a halfback but can slot into the centres. Anaro Tuala. They've got Jacob Kiraz. They've got Marcelo Montoya. They've also got Critter. And that's pretty much it for their outside backs. So, look, big call to make by the Bulldogs to obviously release a guy like Eli Clark. He's a really solid junior, really great ball skills, really good runner, can play centre or wing. They do have a few outside backs there in the catalogue there for the Bulldogs. So, I mean, I guess it's fair enough, but he's certainly going to be well sought after. And as I said here, it's understood that several clubs are interested in his signature. So, be interested to see where he goes. I think that he's not too far off first grade either. Obviously made his debut, I believe, at the start of the year or the midpoint of the year and killed it. Obviously played very well in the trials. Definitely a guy to keep an eye on here, Eli Clark. And I think it's pretty hectic as well and ruthless that, Phil Gould, a guy that is very known for trying to keep the juniors and bring guys through that Bulldog system. He's lost Josh Papali'i and Jordan Samrani, obviously, to the Parramatta Eels. You've now lost Eli Clark to wherever club that he lands at. I think it's big. I think it's a really big thing to look at here, especially with, the side of the Bulldogs and what it's going to look like next year and Phil Gould's temperament of, trying to bring through the juniors. I think it's big that they've just lost 3 guys that you'd think would be in that side for the Bulldogs leading into the future as well. Definitely one to keep an eye on. Connelly Lemuelu. That was really difficult on this Friday morning. The Dolphins have officially re-signed Connelly Lemuelu until the end of 2026 on a 2-year extension. Connelly is the type of person we want to continue to build the club around, said Christian Wolf. Great re-signing. I think that he'll most likely start 2 on that left edge back row. I think they're going to go with younger back rowers, and looking at a few clips and snippets of the Dolphins training, it looks like their right back rower at the moment is Kulakefu Finefuiaki, or at least that was what they were training with, obviously in the shirts when they were putting out some little clips of their training sessions the other day. It looks like Kulakefu Finefuiaki is training on that right side. So I have a little bit of a feeling they're going to go for a bit of a younger back rowers of Colony, and then obviously Kulakefu Finefuiaki. I think that's the direction we might see the Dolphins go down in 2025. A bit too early crowing there, a little bit there for the next 2 years. Losing track of what year it is. But 2025, Connelly Lemuelu, Kulakefu Finefuiaki. I think that's most likely going to be your back row pairing, just off the clips we've seen so far. And just thinking about what that side could look like going into next year, I believe that's what we're going to get from them in 2025. Ryan Papenhuyzen admits he was uncomfortable signing a 3-year deal as he wants to get back to playing and enjoying the game first. I'm not myself to get money. I'm not backing myself to get more money. I'm backing myself to be a valuable member of a squad. He also says here, it says it was hit hard to his ego being asked to take a pay cut at the Melbourne Storm. He said, I thought I was valued a bit more at the club, but after sitting back and understanding it, it's more than that. There's other guys that need to be signed in the squad. Also, Ryan Papenhuyzen has been injured for the past 3 years. He's only played around 20 or so games in the past 3 years. The club would obviously want to get paid back a little bit for that and to, still show that bit of faith. Obviously, Ryan Papenhuyzen, you'd think he'd be on around 600K per year at the moment at the Melbourne Storm. They've also got to re-sign Farlongo as well, so taking a little bit out of Ryan Papenhuyzen's contract to keep a guy like Farlongo, to keep a few other guys in this system as well. I think it's fair enough, the contract that Ryan Papenhuyzen would have most likely been offered. And look, I think that we probably won't see Ryan Papenhuyzen at the Melbourne Storm from 2027 onwards. I think that he'll probably go to a Bulldogs or somewhere like that and build his own legacy a little bit there, with Farlongo coming through the grades and getting more and more ready for first grade. So it will really be interesting to see what happens here with the Melbourne Storm, what their side looks like in the next 3 years. But yeah, Ryan Papenhuyzen, the Melbourne Storm want to win a premiership now. Ryan Papenhuyzen fully fit is one of the better fullbacks in the game. So if they want to get back to that premiership glory, it's good that they've got him to stick around and be a part of that as well. In terms of other news as well, Liam Knight says he's been calling coaches and clubs for contracts for 2025 as his preference is to remain in the NRL. He said, if Super League's the option I have to take, I'll go over there. If that's my option, then I'll do that, he said. Look, interesting. We'll have to wait and see what happens there with Liam Knight. I don't think Souths are going to be in the race to get him anymore. I think that he probably will go to the Super League, which is unfortunate, but I think that's just what it is there for Liam Knight, unfortunately. So, look, we'll have to wait and see what happens. But, yeah, it looks like Super League is probably going to be the go. Speaking of South Sydney, they've just signed Jaden Sullivan too for the 2025 season. However, there is a contract clause there that will give him flexibility to return to the Tigers in 2026 or 2027 if he wishes to. Look, I like this signing. I don't think he'll be playing in the halves too much. I think that he'll be a depth hooker. But yeah, look, it'll be really interesting to see whereabouts he fits into this rotation and where he plays in Cup. Whether it be 5'8", whether it be in that number 9 role, we'll have to wait and see. But I think he could definitely be used as a backup 9 for us as well. Really interesting to see where he pops into that side. Let's just go through one last update here, which was Jason Taumalolo, 31 years of age. He's done his Liz Frank. He's had surgery in late December following injuring his Liz Frank in the Tongan side. He's had so much injuries, and this worries me a lot for Jason Taumalolo as we obviously get later and later into his career. He's had plenty of wrist injuries over the past 2 years. Now doing his Liz Frank, I'm a little bit worried about Jason Taumalolo going into next year and over the next few years as well, and what might happen, because obviously the last time there was injury concern around Jason Taumalolo, there was also talk about where he was going to land for the following year and if he was going to stay at the Cowboys. Look, I'm really interested to see what happens here with Jason Taumalolo. I don't think he's not going to finish his career at the Cowboys. I think he does end up finishing his career there, but stranger things have happened in rugby league. Harder calls have been made in rugby league. So we'll have to wait and see what happens there with this side. And if Jason Taumalolo is a part of it moving forward, post 2027 or 2026 when his contract ends at the end of those years, I'm pretty sure. So it'd be really interesting to see what happens with Jason Taumalolo. With injuries and things like that and where he fits into the rotation moving forward. I think that he is a bench front rower now. That's where he's played his best footy over the past year. So I think that's where he does play his footy, but certainly worrying that there's another injury for Jason Taumalolo as we head into 2025. There you go. That is all of your news going into the past 24 to 48 to 72 hours of rugby league. I apologise, there hasn't been too much content leading into Christmas. We've only just gone on leave for my work. I'm doing other work on the side, so I only just got on leave for the Christmas and obviously for the start of Jan period. So we'll definitely be trying to push out as much content as we can over the next few days leading into Christmas. Definitely some Supercoach content coming. Definitely some more team lists coming as we go into the new year as well. So plenty of content coming. We're also going to be doing some interviews in January and February as we lead into the trials. All of that content's coming, so make sure you stay tuned. Subscribe to the YouTube and become a part of the big LEZ'S League community, and we'll see you guys in the next one.